All right, so let's take it back to the beginning. Let's take it back to the early days, the early days of Andrew Deitch. Now we don't have to start with the first memory, but I
I
always
popped
think that's
out and I was like, "What's up, world?" I'm
but
just
I
kidding.
always think that's interesting what someone's first memory or first couple of memories of their
Yeah,
life are. So
I don't
what are
really
some of your
know.
first memories?
I don't really know what my first memories are. I can like remember my brother being born and stuff like that vaguely. So I was like 4 at the time, 3.5 or so. I remember like I don't really remember much before my brother, but I probably do, but it's just like so vague that it's not put in context for me. But I can remember when my brother was like an infant, like a little bit, like when my mom came home with him. I was staying at my grandparents' house while my parents were at the hospital having my brother. And yeah, I guess my life was like kind of at that point just defined by like being an older brother a little bit, I guess. Because me and my brother were homeschooled. That's something that we both share. And so I spent a lot of time at home with my mom and my brother. And yeah, I think a lot of my earliest memories are just, yeah, hanging out at home and my neighborhood that I was in. I had a couple of friends that I hung out with on a regular basis, but not that much. Like I didn't have like tons of friends early on. It was just a couple of neighborhood kids and me and my brother, and then maybe some kids from church and stuff like that. But yeah, it was a pretty like it was a good childhood. I mean, it was, but like I said, we were homeschooled, so that was like the most, I guess, interesting thing. And also grew up very religious. That was another thing that was like super influential on me. And I think
Yeah,
that
no,
both of us are similar in that way.
yeah, a lot of people that go down the homeschool route usually have some type of like religiousness to them.
Yeah,
There are
probably.
some people that are homeschooled that aren't religious, but I know I've definitely seen that. What would you say has been your like? What was your fondest memory of being homeschooled growing up? And I'll also ask the same question of like, what was your fondest memory of like growing up religious and growing up in the church? Because I know for me, like I'm not a religious person at all any longer, but I still have fond memories of
Totally.
being growing up in those environments. And since they kind of go parallel, that's why I kind of mashed the questions together. What was
Yeah, I think fondest memories of being homeschooled. So we were in a homeschool group after at like a certain point we kind of joined this like homeschool collective or whatever you want to call it. And it was a group of homeschool kids that we would all once a week or whatever, we'd all convene and hang out. And it was all different ages. It wasn't like all the fourth graders would hang out. It was you would hang out with everybody. So we'd hang out with younger kids, older kids, and we'd all meet up at someone's house for that week or whatever. And then the next week we'd meet up at someone else's house. Maybe it was once a month actually with that. I don't remember. But it was cool because we would go on like field trips with them. So that was kind of cool. We were able to like the parents were able to kind of collectively approach different places and say, hey, we're a homeschool group. We want to do a field trip here or whatever. Versus if you're not in one of those groups, it'd probably be a lot harder to get like a field trip organized to go somewhere. I mean, it wouldn't even necessarily be a field trip. It would just be like going on a trip with your mom. It's like going to the museum or something. It's not
Yeah,
really like a real field trip. So,
I remember one time we went to like a Wonder Bread factory, and that stuck
yep,
in my head. It was a small group of
totally.
us, but we got to see how bread got made, and that was
Yeah,
pretty cool.
exactly. Like I remember going to like Mayfield dairy farms where you got to see like cows getting milked and shit and like yeah, like very similar things to that. You go to like factories or you go to a museum together. I remember one time we went to this one museum and they gave this one mom something in her mouth that made her like breathe like smoke or vapor or something. And I was like, holy shit, this mom is like smoking right now. This is crazy. Like it like blew my mind that this like Christian mom was like quote unquote smoking something. It was so funny. And I was like so jealous because I was like, oh, I want to do that. It's cool. But
Were you ever allowed to buy those candy cigarettes as a kid?
I think I had those like at Halloween sometimes, but the one thing I used to do was smoke Smarties. Did you ever do that where you could grind up Smarties? Oh my gosh. Okay, so Smarties, I mean they're very they're fine powder, like and they're just like pressed. Like it's basically just like a pressed candy. And
Like a
it's just
Tums
like
almost.
exactly, and very similar. And you can grind them up if you take them in the package. You kind of like loosen the package, and you like kind of do this and push the Smarties against each other and grind them together. They turn into like a powder, and then eventually you can kind of like flick, like you unscrew one of the ends of it, and you kind of like flick it while you inhale, and you can breathe in like Smartie grounds and breathe it out, and it looks like smoke.
Oh
And
my gosh.
that was more like in middle school and stuff when I would do that. AJ, did you ever smoke Smarties?
I do remember smoking Smarties, and I remember how lame it was.
I always thought it was so fun. And I remember one time Miss Grabencourt in at Perimeter, she got really mad at everyone because we were all like smoking Smarties in her class.
That's
Yeah, I
it. That's an
remember one time-
irresponsible decision.
Yeah, she's like, quit it, cut it out. It was pretty funny. But anyways,
I remember once I was dared to snort the powder that was left over at the bottom of a sour Skittles bag, and
oh God,
I did it. I was always a showman. That was one of the things that
I
like
could
a
see
lot of
that.
people will tell you growing up. I was very much a showman. It was like if you were gonna dare anyone to do anything, it was gonna be me, and I would have done it, even to my
Yeah.
own detriment. And there was a couple of times where I'd hurt myself, but
yeah, I would do that sometimes too. Like I wasn't ever reckless with my body though. I was always such a pussy when it came to that type of stuff. Like I didn't want to like do any like reckless like skateboarding tricks or anything. Like I was always afraid of getting hurt, I guess. But like if it was like eating a bug or like some shit like that, I was always down.
yeah, like I think we were probably influenced by the Jackass movies. Like I know they would always say like don't attempt these stunts, but come on, we're gonna
Didn't ever
copy
get
things
to
we see
watch
on
those
TV.
until later on. Like I was so like sheltered from that kind of stuff too. So like early on, I didn't get to see any of that. So I think by the time I saw it, I was probably like in high school and stuff.
I remember you had to like sneak to go watch those kind of movies. Like
Yeah.
you would be like, dude, there's this one scene from Jackass. I remember I got in trouble for talking about Jackass.
Even
in
just
school one
talking about it
time.
because it says ass.
Yeah.
even though in the Bible Jesus rides into town on an ass. So
Yes,
you know.
but that's out of different context now, Richard.
Yeah. Speaking of, growing up religious, what were some of your fondest memories of that? Was it like a vacation Bible school or a kids camp or like friends? Or what was your favorite thing?
Yeah, I mean, I did everything. My whole life revolved around church, to be honest, because so I was homeschooled until 4th grade, and then in 4th grade I went to the school that was part of my church, and AJ actually went there too. That's kind of how we were connected, anyways. But he's a few years younger than me, so we didn't know. But I knew his older brother. But anyways, we went to this private school that was part of the church. So literally from 4th grade until 8th grade, I was at church 6 days out of the week, because I was there Monday through Friday and then also on Sunday for church. So like literally every single day of the week except for Saturday. And even sometimes on Saturday, I was at the church. And, in the summer, I'd always go to church camps and stuff like that, whether it was the camp at my church or it was another type of church camp that, had sleepover type stuff. Like I was very heavily involved in church. So it's kind of hard to even separate like church from my childhood because it was so intertwined. But I guess, yeah, just like the things that stick out to me the most about, where you draw the line about childhood anyways. But yeah, just like my church small group friends and just getting into shenanigans. And, that's, it was all through my prepubescent all the way to high school days was that. So it's like, I have so many like fond memories about, friends and getting into trouble and doing all kinds of stuff. I even like, I think I told it on our podcast a couple weeks ago about, the TPing story where I was like going out and toilet papering houses. That was with like the guys in my discipleship group or whatever at church. So it was just kind of, it was fun.
Yeah, I think the two things that I found the most interesting were church camps and Wednesday nights in the summer. Wednesday night in the summer, because after it was over, you could always go over to your friend's house and watch movies, jump on the trampoline, cook out, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I liked summer church camp because it was basically like a week away with your friends, and you could take the religious part as serious or not serious as you wanted, and that was always what I appreciated.
We had a thing at our church called Gold Rush. That was always super fun because it was just like all these other churches would come to our church. So like our church hosted it. And so we'd get all these churches that came to it, and we'd always be super stoked to like meet all these new kids and new girls and, blah, blah, blah.
Girls,
like-
yes. Yo, I remember growing up, one of my youth pastors told me, he goes, you guys might not believe this, but the success to all youth groups is attractive girls. And we were all joking, laughing, like, what do you
Not a
mean?
lie.
He goes, I go, what do you mean? He goes, no, seriously. He goes, if you got cute girls in your youth group, more boys want to come. And if more boys come, more girls want to come. And before you know it, everyone's there to find a boyfriend or a girlfriend, but then you just trick them and teach them about Jesus.
100% accurate, dude. That is 100% accurate. Because I remember even at one point at my church, like all the kids wanted to go to this one other youth group.
Because that's where all the hot girls were.
And it was 100% true. It's because that's where all the hot girls were. Is very true. Real hot girl shit.
That's funny that happened. So what about your adolescent years a little bit further on, like moving on into like junior high
I think
and
the
high
other
school?
the other big thing was Scouts. So I started Scouts in like 5th grade, Boy Scouts. And that's another thing that we share. So Boy Scouts was like a really big aspect of that too, because it was kind of funny because a lot of the kids that I was homeschooled with were also in Scouts, but by that point I wasn't homeschooled anymore. So I knew a lot of those homeschool kids already, and then I also knew a lot of the kids from school in Scouts too, because also my Scout troop was based out of my church as well. So that was another aspect of my life that was built out of that same church. So it was another layer. Tuesday nights was when we had Scout meetings. So even on Tuesday nights I was at church even longer, and then on the weekends, Saturdays, sometimes I was at church because we'd do our campouts or like we'd have a thing on Saturday or whatever. So like literally when I tell you like church was like my life, it really kind of was. And but Scouts I would say was something that I've definitely taken for granted, but in recent years I've come to appreciate a lot, just because there were so many things that I learned in Boy Scouts that I don't even really realize why I know these things. And then I'm like, why don't other people know this? And then I'm like,
Scouts.
oh, because I learned it in Scouts. Like, I just think that this is like common knowledge to everyone. Like, oh yeah, you learn that when you're younger, but it's totally not true. Like lots of leadership stuff, lots of even like cooking stuff and like cleanliness and, all kinds of stuff is very, very integral to Scouts. I mean, you look at their core values, and unfortunately Scouts has deteriorated quite a bit in the past few years, and that makes me really sad. Mainly because
I don't know if they've deteriorated more or if they've just got a bad rap. Like,
they've deteriorated a lot, and they've lost a lot of money and a lot of funding and a lot of public image, unfortunately. And
yeah, I think it started out when they came out publicly about they said like no gays and no girls, basically. When they
said no gays and no
that.
girls, and then they redacted that, and then they said, okay, fine, gays, fine, girls, and then they said, okay, fine, you can, and they basically just had a lot of pressure from like the progressive side of things, and unfortunately a lot of Scout troops are very, very religious, and so a lot of
they're more
troops,
conservative, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of I know in like the Mormon faith, actually, Scouts is like pretty integral. Like pretty much all boys that are Mormon, or I think it's Mormon, are involved in Boy Scouts. I'm pretty sure it's Mormon.
Wouldn't surprise me.
And so when that happened,
I'll fact check it.
Yeah, when that happened, like Mormons pretty much had to be like, I guess we're not doing Scouts anymore because it went against their religion. And unfortunately, yeah, they've done a lot of things. And that was the other weird thing, is like once they started allowing girls, because then the Girl Scouts were like, well, what are we here for? And it's like, well, Girl Scouts is very different than Boy Scouts. And then it's like, well, now boys are allowed in Girl Scouts and girls are allowed in Boy Scouts. And then it's just like nothing matters anymore. It was like, it became so inclusive that it was like Boy Scouts was special for these reasons, and then it stopped being special. Excuse me. And so, yeah, I don't, yeah, it's just really sad to see the deterioration of it. And they've lost lots of funding. They've lost, just people aren't even joining Scouts anymore. That's the thing. Like lots of troops are disbanding. Lots of troops, again, were founded in out of churches. And so when these rules came into place, a lot of churches even said like, hey, you guys are cool to still be a troop, but like we can't host you anymore as at this location for free or for cheap or whatever anymore. And so a lot of troops had to disband because they literally didn't even have a place to meet anymore. And that's just really sad.
I think there's also, I personally never experienced this, and I don't know anyone else who has personally experienced this, but that doesn't mean I'm saying it's not true. However, there's a lot of lawsuits and a lot of rumor about a lot of like sexual deviancy.
Lots of predatory
about
behavior, for sure.
A lot of predatory behavior. Scout leaders taking advantage of the younger kids taking advantage of other kids, older kids taking advantage of the younger kids. And it really breaks my heart because Scouts is now bankrupt and has a bunch of assets, and a lot of people are suing after it. And it's like, dude, that sucks because I remember growing up and thinking about I was proud to put Boy Scouts on my resume. Putting down that I was an Eagle Scout on my resume was like, yeah, these people are gonna know I'm tough and I'm a good worker and I'm smart and I'm trained. But now it's kind of like, I mean, I'll let people know I'm an Eagle Scout because I am one and I'm proud I am one. But there's just a lot of weird, it's kind of like saying you're Catholic these days. It's like, oh, if you say you're Catholic, that means you're a pedophile. And it's like, no.
Or you support it. It's like maybe you're not a pedophile, but how prevalent that is inside of the Catholic faith, unfortunately. I mean, there's millions and millions and millions of Catholics all around the world that are not involved in that at all. Same thing with Boy Scouts. Like you said, I never experienced any sort of predatory behavior in my troop. Everyone that I interacted with was very awesome. All the adult leaders were great. It was a very healthy troop, and some scout troops did allow moms to get involved. Our troop didn't allow moms to get involved, really.
Same. We didn't
you
allow
could get
them either,
involved,
yeah.
but not to the point of going on trips with us and things like that. You could be involved, but pretty much it was mostly dads, and I'd say the vast majority of all the dads involved in scouts were really awesome, and I learned a lot from them, and to this day I look up to them as a lot of leaders. What were you gonna say, AJ?
So from what I've just looking at the search, a lot of the Mormons have just pulled out boys out of the Boy Scouts because they just don't agree with their new beliefs now. So
and I know also the troop that I was involved with, they are no longer a Boy Scout troop, and there's actually another organization that got formed around that first instance of what you were talking about, Richard, when they kind of started to go down that path of okay, fine, we will allow gay scout leaders and things like that. There was another organization founded called Trail Life USA, and it's very, very similar to Boy Scouts, very, very similar to the core values. They still do all the same things, and actually a lot of Boy Scout troops have converted to Trail Life troops. And so that's actually how my Boy Scout troop is able to still operate as a troop, but they are no longer affiliated with Boy Scouts of America. They are Trail Life USA, which is pretty cool, I think, and seems like still a great organization. A lot of the same people are involved. So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh man, I want my kid to learn all this stuff, but I don't think I want to join Boy Scouts, I would definitely look into Trail Life, just because I know that that's an alternative. But it still doesn't hold that same weight. You got the whole Eagle Scout thing. That was such a very, very stronghold thing and very set, rigid boundaries, and it had such legacy attached to it.
A pinnacle of a milestone.
It really is, and it's there was tradition behind it. There was a lot of adult leaders in my troop that were proud to be Eagle Scouts from back in the day, and there was lineage and heritage to it that now is just kind of unfortunately tainted.
Yeah, I know. I'm more proud of my Eagle Scout than I'm proud of my high school diploma.
Oh, for sure.
And my high school diploma got through a GED, so I really didn't. I didn't do anything for it. What were some of your favorite merit badges? What did you enjoy doing the most?
Merit badges that I enjoyed. Honestly, I'm trying to think. I liked the survival type stuff, just because that's so the
badass. Wilderness survival. The wilderness survival was my absolute favorite too. Yeah, and I think I also really liked the woodworking stuff because you could build with your hands.
Yeah, I liked wilderness survival just because it was such stuff that you would never learn anywhere else. So that was cool. I also liked the water merit badges, all the stuff on the lake or whatever.
All the swimming stuff.
Yeah, and also water safety stuff. I eventually became a lifeguard, so honestly, I feel like that was probably part of the reason why I became a lifeguard was I was already kind of trained in some of that stuff, CPR and even I remember there's one in particular thing that was really cool with the water safety or whatever. I don't even remember what merit badge was attached to, but it might have even been survival. But it was when you're stranded in the ocean or in the lake or something, you could wrap your pants around your neck and turn it into a life vest by pushing air bubbles into the pants and making
smack the water.
You smack the water and make bubbles, and you could fill your pants with air and turn them into like a little balloon almost and make it into a little life vest. And I thought that was really crazy because it's like, holy shit, you can like make your pants. But also, when are you ever going to be on the water wearing long pants?
When we crash, when we're on a plane and we crash into the water and survive.
It's like, I was thinking that the whole time. I'm like, bro, I'm never wearing pants though. Like, so I was always a diehard shorts wearer. So I'm like,
how can I turn my
get stranded, I'm fucked.
my jeans into a flotation device.
Yeah, and I guess also my favorite memories from Scouts were also just like playing with fire and shit because I loved playing with fire. And also one time on this one trip, we brought potato cannons and we were just shooting off potato cannons until we got in trouble, and that was amazing. So that was super fun.
Yo, a good potato gun can feel really powerful. Like you can feel.
Yeah. Me and my brother built one from
scratch. Launch that thing 100 yards. You hit that little grill lighter button, and it goes fa-doomp, and it just
Me and my brother, we tried to make one with the little button, but like we somehow we didn't ever get it completely right. So we had one of the kinds where you'd like flick the little flint on it, and that was always super fun too because it was like very if you didn't flick it right.
Hairspray?
Yeah, you use hairspray or Axe body spray.
Hope you enjoyed that clip. If you'd like to see the full episode, click right here. If you'd like to subscribe, click here. If you'd like more clips, we got 2 more right over here.